Bravo! Have you ever realized that there is power in humility? Yes, there is power in humility. On today's show, I'll be talking about the lifting power of humility. But hey, my name is Eric Masaba. I am a member of the Kenya Scouts Association, a teacher by profession, and very passionate about arts and its constituents. Welcome on the show as we check out this topic of the lifting power of humility.
SRM Show.
If you're already here, clap for yourself because of why? What we do on this show, we offer mentorship through experiential learning. Karibu sana. So on today's show, you will realize that it's a bit different. It's structured like a class, and basically it is very intentional because we realize the need to speak about humility to the scouts we mentor. And basically, the objectives of today's show: connecting scouts we mentor with the lifting power of humility by providing relevance to the promises of God and promote scouting values that enhance immunity. Now, we can never speak about humility without speaking about pride. Humility brings about exaltation. Humility brings about exaltation. What is exaltation? Exaltation is the feeling of rejoicing, jubilation, and all that kind of a thing. I draw my jurisdiction to the book of James chapter 4 verse 6. But the grace that God gives is even stronger, as the scripture says, God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. That draws me to the attention that we can never speak about humility without speaking about pride. Now, let us go through the subject of pride. The subject of pride. The subject of pride, I was looking at it after my research and I realized that there are two dimensions of pride. There is the emotional dimension of pride, and then there is the psychological dimension of pride. You can never understand the subject of pride without understanding the human nature. Of course, that is where the psychological dimension comes in. You can never understand the subject of pride without understanding the human nature. And then my research took me direct to this one person called Abraham Maslow. By the grace of God, I was able to read about Abraham Maslow, and I realized that as a psychologist, Abraham Maslow actually drew this pyramid of the psychology advancement of the human being. So when I was reading about Abraham Maslow's research, I realized that he divided this pyramid into three parts. And the first part was the basic needs, second part was psychological needs, and the third part was self needs. And on the basic needs, we are talking about the basic needs za kawaida kama food, shelter na mambo kama hayo. When you're talking about psychological needs, you're talking about the sense of belonging, the self-esteem of a person, and all that kind of a thing. And of course, these are things that are affecting the society. Currently, we are experiencing a lot of suicidal rates. The young people hapa na pale. These are problems facing the young people. The aspects of needing the sense of belonging, our self-esteem zinaenda chini na mambo kama hayo. So hii Abraham Maslow, hii research yake ilinisaidia sana ku understand vitu zingine. Then tukaenda to the level of the self-actualization now. Those are self-needs na mambo kama hayo. So for you to understand why we need to know the psychological behavior of the human being for us to aid the aspects of learning the subject of pride, as Abraham Maslow alikuwa anasema, the highest psychological need of all men is the need to be loved and accepted and celebrated, and the need to be appreciated, of course. Then akasema ya kwamba the pride is rooted in the feeling of deep insecurity, fear, and sense of powerlessness and unworthiness. Then I went ahead to look at the definition of pride from different perspectives. I came up with my own definition. So definition number one of pride: a lust of the praises of men. That is my definition number one. A lust of the praises of men. Number 2, a high or inordinate opinion of one's dignity, importance, merit, and superiority, whether cherished in the mind or displayed in conduct. Then finally, I went ahead to describe this subject of pride in my own way, and I say this: a feeling of being better than others on the strength of perception or in the presence of obvious achievement. Because when you have obvious achievement, you feel proud na mambo kama hayo. Then, of course, I realized that feeling proud is not bad, but there is a level of pride that when you start manifesting, it becomes even harmful to yourself and to the society you live in. For instance, in the digital world we are living in right now, there is an aspect of development that is really interesting. Technology has made it easy for us to showcase talent. So young people are showcasing talent on different social platforms kama TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. Alafu kuna kampuni ambazo zinapendezwa na ile talent, and they view like if we promote this young talent, we can be able to sell our product. So they take this young person, not all of them, but probably this young person has not undergone some specific trainings that comes with that greatness, because they have been noted, they have a following, wanachukuliwa wanaanza promote product fulani na hawajakuwa subjected to training kama how to speak to the media, how to answer to a hater, how to relax when you're going through some problems hapa na pale. Hawajajua hizi situations, they do not know, they do not understand how to go about when these situations come. So whenever these young people are given this opportunity, money comes and then pride comes in. And when pride comes in, you will realize that they rise too quickly. Not all of them, of course, please. I want us to understand each other. Not all of them, but some of them. They will rise quickly, and then the fall will be too quickly. The reason being is the kinds of exposures with regards to this kind of information. So that's basically the reason we feel that is too important, because we know the kinds of people we speak to on this channel. We speak to champions. Hence the reason we call you Waku ama Mku. So when you're speaking to champions, they need to be prepared to go through greatness and to understand what makes great men fall na mambo kama hayo. So that's the reason we thought it wise to have this discussion of the lifting power of humility. So I went ahead to look into the dimensions of pride, which I will not basically go through right now because of the time allocated for this show. So after understanding the psychological nature as explained by Abraham Maslow, I talked about the emotional dimension. And in the emotional dimension, I realized that the spirit in partnership with the mind brings out the soul. This body of ours is only an instrument of execution. It does not have the power to execute. Remember, we had read the book of James chapter 4 verse 6, and we had talked about God adding to those that are humble. Information number 1 is that God gives grace to the humble. And there is a candidate for that grace. The candidate for that grace is the humble. It's worth mentioning that simplicity is not humility. So lastly, how do you remain humble? You have to remain on your knees. You need to ask God for the grace to remain humble. Because we might be humble, but as time goes by, we get resources, we get money, we get influence, and we forget that we should be humble. Be a prayerful person for God to continue giving you grace to remain humble. The topic was the uplifting power of humility. God will uplift you and release you to dimensions that you will be surprised, even yourself, because of the humility. The more humble you are, the more connections you make. The more humble you are, the more learning you do. All leaders are learners, and leaders are leaders. If you have something to add, you're welcome to add it on the comment, and let's interact. Let's add some experiences to it, and we will definitely promote the vision of Kenya Scouts Association of creating a better world. So this has been the show for today. Scout Masaba show, the lifting power of humility. Adios muchacha.